Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of From No Crypto to No Crypto. I'm your host, the crypto coach, Blockchain Wayne. In this episode, we're joined by Bartos. Bartos is with MyCointainer's. He'll tell you a little bit about himself, but first and foremost, Bartos, thank you for joining us today for this podcast episode.
Thank you for having me. It's a big pleasure, as always, to participate in anything related to FIO. So we always, enjoying things quite a lot. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us. Let's jump right into it, Bartos. I know we're going to tell everybody a little bit more later about MyCointainer's, but tell us a little bit about your background. I'm always curious to find out how people got into this space and kind of what you've done in the past so far.
Yeah, so for me, it's been quite a long journey, I would say. I started working quite early, I would say. So I was maybe, 16, 17. I started playing with, building websites and things of that sort. Right now I'm 34. So you can imagine I'm already, I would say probably, approaching 20 years, in this, in my professional career, let's say. Then, I went to London, so I worked in many design agencies. Then I worked in banking, in finance, in Deutsche Bank, Barclays. Afterwards, I came back to Poland, so that's where I come from. And I helped one startup to kind of grow from like 40 people to 600. And then 2016 was the moment where I kind of started looking into the crypto. So primarily through staking coins, right? So I think this was the moment where I don't know if you remember, but there were first proof of stake coins appearing. And this kind of allowed everyone to help to kind of participate in the staking ecosystem and essentially invest, which kind of make a huge difference, I would say, because not a lot of people could, let's say, afford or maybe even like store heavy Bitcoin machines or even operate them. So I thought, well, maybe if I create my container platform that will be very simple for everyone to use, like deposit funds, maybe we can speed up the sort of the adoption and help everyone to participate in the staking protocols. So that's how MyCointainer's started. I actually self-founded MyCointainer's so for nearly 3 years. So I was pouring all of my money into the project. It was 3 hard years, I must say, especially back in the days. Staking, nobody knew staking. When I was even trying to hire people, talking to some people, it was really, really difficult. I remember the prices of the assets back in the days apart from obviously the one of the bull runs, where, you essentially couldn't make money. Initially, I even thought that the staking would be like a way for us to kind of bring people in and then they would be using our exchange. But so these were very tough 3 years, I must say. But it was very long journey. Very, I would say, 24 to 30 months. We managed to become profitable, and we managed to get first investments from some of the prominent investors like Bybit, Shima, DFG, and many others. So you can imagine this was a very happy moment for me because finally I could start paying salary for myself. So that's really how we started. Again, we couldn't do it without obviously the community, the partnerships with all of the projects that we made, and obviously everybody who kind of trusted me and helped MyCointainer's grow. So so these were very tough days, I must say. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I strongly, don't recommend anyone to bootstrap the projects because it's really tough and a very painful process, I must say.
Yeah, I would bet it's a money burn for a while until you can turn that
You know,
corner of profitability.
yeah, it's not even that you burn the money. Like if you knew that you are burning money and eventually you will essentially make the profit, then yeah, then you would be comfortable making burning money. But the problem with burning money is that you essentially don't know if that
Yeah.
burning money will be profitable, right? So every single month you kind of burn extra money, but you don't know if yeah, if you will be profitable at all, and if you will even make it or attract the new audience, users, and revenue. So this is probably the most, I would say, difficult thing that we had as my container, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So let's jump into staking for a minute. I mean, we'll get into some more questions about my container, but the premise of this show and when I started it was centered around educating people about the space so they can listen in, they can hear an interview, but they'll learn something as well. As you mentioned, when you first started, not many people were familiar with staking or what it
Yep.
was. And I think in the space we've gone a little ways, but there's also been some muddy of the waters in terms of some people will say they're staking, but they're not truly staking. They're not participating in governance. It's just some company has put up some marketing funds that they're slowly paying out over time. So maybe give some insight into, to our listeners, what is staking? What
Sure.
does it truly involve? What is real staking and what does that truly involve?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So this would be quite, I would say, quite a long. I don't think we'll have that much time, but I would try to obviously kind of
Yeah.
do it in the very in the very short.
Yeah, high level.
Uh, Yeah. So, well, in short, like the most popular ways of staking coins is essentially just delegating them to the validators, and validators produce the blocks. And essentially, by doing this work, they receive certain rewards, and that's it. And those rewards are those money, the coins that you receive are essentially rewards that you will be getting for helping validate the blockchain. That's in
Hmm.
simple terms. Now,
Yeah.
but that's probably the simplest way of explaining this. But over time, as you've pointed out, the term staking evolved, right?
Hmm.
So it kind of right now, especially in the DeFi space, anywhere you generally would deploy capital to any pools, you generally would also call that staking. Now, if you are new to this, let's say, game or staking, you must be really, I would say, aware of what is actually happening with those money and what, where is the yield coming from,
Hmm.
especially.
Yeah.
So, for anyone who is trying to, so very often there might be some DeFi strategies happening under the hood and things of that sort. Sometimes, like, as you pointed out, there might be something, let's say, not proper going on with some, let's say, unverified projects and so on, so on. So my strong advice to this is essentially, like, I think for everybody, just education, reading. If you have the technical experience, just check the smart contract where it's been audited. I mean, generally, if you go through an audit and there is a report of such audit of the smart contract to which you will be deploying the funds, if it's public, and it should be public, like we did, for example, with our latest project with our network, it's public, you can see all of the informations about the audit. So you will find some insights or details that what the smart contract is capable for, what permissions are there, and so on, so on. So I would strongly that encourage, especially if you are using large portion of your funds, right? If generally, so you will be taking some risks. So, I'd say better to obviously check things beforehand than regret it, obviously, right? Because we saw many, examples in both CeFi and DeFi, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
We saw in both spaces. So I always say, in my container, and I think you guys are doing in FIO as well, a lot of education. I think anybody, just to mention also this, anybody who's doing educational content, I think we strongly, like, I personally really do admire this approach, and we also are doing this a lot because without strong education and teaching people how things are working, it's going to be very hard to make adoption. Unfortunately, a lot of people are still coming to crypto just to make quick bucks. That's unfortunate. It's they see high yield, they think they will get billionaires over time, and it's super rare that it actually happens,
Right.
as you probably know. It may happen, but you probably know, you will see some post on Twitter, and someone made, some crazy, bet, like 500,000 million, but and people get excited, obviously, but they don't see, you know, that 99% of other people that didn't, and that's
Right.
really what triggers people. So education is the most important. I would say everybody who really thinks, and I believe everybody who's getting into the blockchain should really learn, educate themselves, do the research. It will pay off in the long run. Essentially, it's really like I spend even, you know, from 2015, 2016, I didn't build. I was just learning and experimenting with staking coins and things of that sort. It was honestly, it was horrible. I don't know if you tried to stake
Yeah.
anything back in the days. It was nightmare. I had like, I was like, oh my god, this is like everything crashes. Like wallet crashed. Like just everything.
It
The
wasn't easy.
blockchain, yeah, it was insane. So yeah, so my strong, again, I will just maybe repeat myself again, but education is really the most important thing, and yeah, I think this would be my advice. If you were really embrace the education and the learning, then
Hmm.
you essentially equip yourself with the mindset that you can kind of carry on through your whole journey. Otherwise, you will be on the mercy of people telling you on Twitter, this is the next gem, this is gonna make 100x, and you will fall for it, and that's
Yeah.
really unfortunate. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people come in. I mean, I came into the space initially around the same time as you, for looking to invest, put some money in, make some money.
Mhm.
But you're right. The key is we've got to educate people along the way. There's nothing wrong coming in with that mindset as long as you're open to truly learning what this
Yeah.
is, what problems does cryptocurrency really solve, and then on the staking side, understand that whether you're participating in governance or you're staking and is participating in a DeFi yield, or kind of like we've seen over the years, I used to tell people all the time when they would send me some scam projects, I said, when you don't understand where the yield is coming from, you're the yield,
Yeah, yeah.
right? The
It's
new
a
money
fair.
coming in is the yield that's paying the people that have been in a while, and those are the ones that we've seen don't really last the test of time. What were, if you don't mind saying, what were some of those early coins that you were staking?
Yeah. Sure, I can tell you. I mean, I was taking. I think they were like. Let's see. Let me think. Um, I think there was like Lux. I don't know if you know. It's called LUX.
AUX?
There was, I think it was called the D-Bet. I thought it was quite
Mm-hmm.
interesting. It was kind of like decentralized betting system, which I think it had like potential. But so this was again, there was uh, like Peercoin, PVEX. Yeah, like really, I would say some of them are still around. I think so. It's
Yeah,
not
I
that
saw
bad.
something around Pivx recently, and I didn't realize they were still around.
Yeah. How about yourself? Like what were your initial?
I was in the space at the same time as you, but I didn't really dig into staking until, I
Okay.
mean, other than I was looking into staking Dash, and I realized how much it would cost
Dash. Oh
to
yeah,
run a
yeah,
node on Dash, and I kind of backed out. But
yeah,
Tezos is actually what eventually got me to take a look at
yeah.
staking. They call it baking, but it's the same concept, right? It's participating in governance, delegating your stake, and earning a reward. Um,
Hmm.
and what I
That's
liked
even
about Tezos was, I could stake from cold storage.
that's that yeah that was a big changer, by the way. That really was a big change that happened. That more and more projects decided to do it cold staking, which I think is super important, and it really changed, improved security. But I want to actually touch on one point that you mentioned about the baking, which is staking, and it's it's quite funny because like even nowadays I find it quite not really funny, but I think it's like it's every single project they are trying to come up with something, let's say, innovative, and they call the different names for the same functionality. like, you like staking, and they call it baking. Some other people call it like, something else. And I think in the grand scheme of things, it really confuses a lot of people, because people, suddenly they have to learn the word that means the same thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it's necessary, honestly. I think the more simple language, the better. So, like, even nowadays, I check sometimes the project with staking, and there are some, terms that I don't know, because it's a new project, and they came up with those names just to, let's say, make it look fancy, but on the contrary, it really disturbs from the adoption. So with my container, we generally try to make things really simple, for better or worse, try to make simple guides, do step by step, follow guides, or maybe like a YouTube videos where people can do like click, 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 and just really, really simple stuff. Like I always say, like I always think, like if your mom or dad cannot follow this guide, it's probably too difficult. So
Yeah.
this is my always, like a guideline for the simplicity, because I mean I can just tell you even like one story. A lot of my friends, I was trying to, and I don't know, you can maybe tell me your experience, but I think that a lot of, at least from 2018, 2019, a lot of people I spoke with, and they say, hey, so what you are doing? And I say staking, and I explain them the staking and so on, so on. And I tried to explain many times, and this was like 4 years ago, and even nowadays, I mean, I didn't. I expected to people to already know what staking is these days, like a lot of people, but I don't think, at least in my personal experience, I don't think that many people know what staking really is. And even if I explain them, it seems to be that to me that the blockchain itself, it's generally quite hard to grasp, and therefore the adoption is relatively slow, in my opinion, to to what it potentially could be, otherwise. But yeah, I see this especially in staking. I can tell from staking perspective, because I generally every day I have this every day in front of me. So yeah, I see this. I don't know if it's worrying, but it's certainly, like why I'm saying this is because there are
Yeah.
many new things coming up every single day or week, and then you think like, oh, actually, yeah. So imagine like if what we are doing right now, let's say DeFi, or maybe like some isolated pools, or like and things of that sort that are quite new, or derivatives, or share LP shares of the pools, like they are not even new, but if people don't understand the staking, the basic concepts, there are still many things that has appeared already, that are already on the frontier, that that I don't know when they will grasp it, essentially. So
Mhm.
on one hand, it worries me, because um, it's I wish it was picked up much, much faster. So yeah, at least this is my experience. I don't know
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on this, like from your perspective and how you speak with people.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. And I think it's because, like you mentioned, like liquidity providing and stuff like that as well. Those are concepts that exist in TradFi and CFI, but most people haven't been able to participate in that type of a yield. So understanding that is hard. And then I think it's a correlation to mining. I mean, I was mining Ethereum with
Oh yeah,
GPUs years
I mean, too,
ago,
yeah.
and people don't really understand that. You've got to go to the basics of what is a blockchain, how does it operate, why do you need a governance model, and what does proof of work do, and then you can understand what proof of stake does. Just like when I start
Exactly.
teaching people the basics of cryptocurrency, a lot of times I got to back up and teach them the history of money, because most people don't really understand that,
Okay.
or how the Federal Reserve and these
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
central banks across the world operate. So if you don't understand that, you don't understand the problem we're solving. So to understand what
Fair enough. Yeah.
staking is, I think we've got to make it super simple to where a young
Yes.
kid or an elderly grandparent can grasp it. And that's what we saw happen with technology adoption, right? When you think about the internet itself, sending email. I've heard, in my early days of getting into the space, I was listening to talks by Andreas Antonopoulos, and he would talk
Okay.
about how, email was hard. In the early days, you needed to understand code and pretty much almost be a programmer to be able to send and
Okay.
receive email, because it was complicated. But yet today, an elderly grandmother can send an email on an iPad with the
Yeah.
swipe of a
Yeah.
finger. And that's, I think, where we've got to get to. So we've got to have that combination of education, understand what the tech really does, and then also the interfaces have to make it easy.
Of course.
Because other than that, people aren't going to come to this unless they're forced to. People get comfortable in certain things and they only move when they get uncomfortable. So education is one way to make them uncomfortable, because once you learn more about the banking system, I think one thing that's helping us today, right, is inflation we're starting to see ramp up across the world more than it has in the past. And so a lot of people, and we're seeing banks collapse. So a lot of people are now opening their eyes to these problems. But you're right, education is the biggest key to make them understand the risk of what they're doing in staking. What benefit does it provide? What is your potential? And so I think, yeah, we definitely need to see a lot more of that in terms. So definitely having what you guys have in MyCointainer to be able to educate people on
Yeah.
what they're doing, what is staking, making it easy for people. That's going to be the key, and really pointing out those resources. So does MyCointainer have resources that, I don't want to say recommend, but give people the details for staking all the different coins or tokens that are
Yeah,
available?
most of them. I mean, when we have like over 100 coins right now for staking, so generally, I mean, pretty much most of the even cold staking and custodial staking that we are doing, we have both options. By the way, again, just to really cater for let's say beginners. Generally, beginners would prefer, as you mentioned, very simple interface. They don't want to play with seed phrases and so on and so on. So we support both users, and we have generally no preference. Obviously, we would prefer eventually that everybody would be using non-custodial solutions, because in my opinion, that's the way to do it. But in reality, this is the way we see this, that we want to help on board new users, and then when we educate them, then they can use our solutions that are, let's say, more advanced. So we do support even guides for custodial staking and for non-custodial staking alike. So just to also teach people to kind of like move from the custodial staking to non-custodial staking. So yeah, I think this is because they would understand on the custodial part how things work, and then they can maybe install the MetaMask. Maybe they were like, oh, this is quite easy. I've done something with this MetaMask, and they can just track things. And yeah, it's a good I think, deed to say that we
Yeah.
helped at least a few people to move and teach them how to use non-custodial solutions. So I think this is always a good thing. Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
also mentioned regarding the Bitcoin and the inflation. I mean, again, this is quite, again, so like, I wish that more people would treat Bitcoin not as a speculation, but as a essentially hedge for the inflation. So if people really like kind of, at least I'm personally, no investment advice, but I'm personally a big fan of Bitcoin. Obviously, I think it's a
Hmm.
strong foundation for the ecosystem. So I think if people really looked at the Bitcoin, like everybody treated Bitcoin as the inflation hedge and really like a long-term asset keeping rather than speculations, then yeah, it would be amazing. I just think that over time people could borrow against it, and that um, but again, I think it will come with time, hopefully. And I see, as you pointed out, I saw the correlation between Bitcoin going up when the banks were going down, which I
Yeah.
was thinking like, wow, this is quite interesting. So finally, there were some insights that when the banks were going down, the Bitcoin was going up. So I was like, oh wow, finally we have before that you had generally a DAO correlation to Bitcoin was pretty much similar. When the DAO was
Hmm.
going up, Bitcoin was going up, and so on and so on. But at that point, I looked at the charts and I was like, wow, this is quite interesting. And I would love to see more of this, like Bitcoin being uncorrelated with more and more assets. So such that people really do, like, when I'd love to meet more people and say, oh, I own Bitcoin because of the hedge for the inflation. Like, I'd love to,
Hmm.
to meet more of those people. But I don't want to say I met many of those so far. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole premise. That's how I came into the space, was through Bitcoin.
Awesome.
And yeah, I mean, people need to realize that. But what you mentioned about banks, I think banks have really conditioned people. Most people today aren't used to controlling their own custody. They think they are because they have an account and a login and they can look up their balance, or most time people can spend their balance whenever they want, but the banks have custody. or if they trade in stocks, the stockbroker has the custody. If
Yeah.
they, so that people aren't used to having that responsibility of custody. So it's good to have that
Very
where you
true.
can
Yeah.
edge people in to where they can take custody. And yeah, I'm a big fan. Same thing. I don't give financial advice, but I tell people if you understand how Bitcoin operates and you're
Yeah.
thinking long term, then the best thing you can do, at least on Bitcoin, is accumulate a little bit over time.
Exactly.
Continue to put a little bit in, and that's a strategy I teach, dollar cost average.
Very
But
good. Yeah.
obviously, when you find out about other projects you believe in, especially those are proof of stake, then if you believe in the project's going to be good long term, and you have a chance to stake and participate in governance, it's kind of a win-win. Even if the yield is kind of low percentage-wise, but you're earning long term, and if you think 5 years from now that's going to be a really good bet, then there's nothing in life that's certain. So you got to take risk. But when people
Yeah.
understand that, I think that'll get more people into staking, really highlighting the ones, not just focusing on what the percentage yield is, but getting people to be believers in the project. And then if they are a believer in that project, then it just makes sense. Hey, if I'm going to hold this long term anyway, I might as well stake. That's what I've done with majority of my FIO tokens. Like
Yeah,
I'm
for
long
sure.
term with this, so I'm
Yeah.
going to stake it, let it ride. I don't care if I'm getting 2% or 12%. I think it's about 10% or 11% right now, but it doesn't matter to me what it is. I know those fluctuate depending on how many people are staking, how much
Exactly.
activity is on chain. That's with anything. So there's no guarantees on the yield percent. But I think that's where people realize, okay, if you're going to hold it anyway, long term, because the volatility in the market is not for everybody. I love that when I
No.
see people come in and think, oh, it's easy to trade. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Some people would be better off just accumulating long term. I think about that too. Some of the things I did in 2017, I'd have been better off just holding the ETH instead of buying all those different tokens that were coming out there, and that was the ICO
Yeah.
craze of
It-
2017.
yeah, I think once, I don't know, I think this was, I think Warren Buffett probably mentioned this, I think so, or someone, or Charlie Munger, but, I'm not agreeing with everything they say, especially about the Bitcoin, but there was one thing that I think pointed out, very, that they pointed out very accurately, that, let's say in, I don't know, maybe this was, very early, let's say, which year could be, let's say between the first and second war, when people were trading stocks, right? So, you had to actually physically go somewhere and buy the stocks and so on and so on, right? Or call, afterwards, call the broker and things of that sort. Nowadays, everybody has like interface where you are one click away from trade. So you
Right.
emotionally you get driven into this. So you ride on those emotions. Like if people had to like buy Bitcoin, then like physically to go to somewhere, people would buy Bitcoin. They wouldn't sell because they wouldn't be bothered. So it would be, as you mentioned, that fluctuation is not for everyone, and I think that ease of access to trading, it can be really, well, obviously it has a lot of benefits, but you pointed out those downsides that people get to think that it's very easy to kind of jump in and out of the trades. And yeah, I really do believe that also. Um, yeah, with projects, yeah, if you believe it and if you've done proper research, again, we will emphasize on this again. If you've done the proper research and especially, I personally think that it's really like for people that are watching, I think it's really important to really see the track record on delivery. I think this is for me the one of the most important thing that I personally look at the projects. Like if the project has delivered something like a product or something that really works or is valuable for people, this is a very good indication for me that the project is very useful and is trying to accomplish something. But and this is very hard. Most of the projects, as you probably know, they have, let's say, the facade. It's amazing, but as you go deeper and deeper into the nuances, it gets
Yeah.
it gets worse and worse, essentially. So yeah. So I would say, again, it's really important to know. And I think again, like I think this is quite like I think again, I think this is Buffett said it that how to start it, and they say like open the book with the companies and start from A and researching the companies. But it's a very mundane task. Nobody these days wants to do proper research. Everybody wants to get like the tip and write the 100x. So yeah, it's a bit of a, it's a bit of a, um, I would say, I don't want to say that delusional thinking, but I do hope that more
Yeah.
and more people will do it. So because
Yeah,
yeah, that's
it's a challenge.
eventually, yeah, that's how eventually. But as you mentioned as well, especially after the last winter, more and more projects are still building and keep on building. Like you guys been around for a long time, and yeah, so it's also a very good sign for people that as you've been for a while, you continue building. We've integrating FIO recently on our platform, and also I see you make new stuff, and yeah, it's great. I think it's and again, you are simplifying also the process, which
Hmm.
is very useful. Like I think you what you are doing, you are simplifying the user experience of the people that are trying to
Right.
send some funds, which is amazing, and yet another, let's say, building block for improving the adoption. So
Yeah,
kudos to you.
absolutely. I definitely want to emphasize something you said earlier about researching a project and looking at what they've produced and what they've done, and also on the whole tone that they want to tip or they want to get rich quick.
Yeah.
Some people have that lottery mentality, so it's a mindset shift that people have to get out of. And in my early days of teaching people crypto, I realized that you've got to teach mindset as well because people have the wrong mindset, and you've
Yes,
got
sir.
to change that thinking to people that are open to changing that thinking. But look past the price. Like people look at a project's performance as, oh, the price is going up and up and up. Well, everything's going to be volatile. Every company is going to have these waves. Every project's going to have these waves up and down. And it's really what have they delivered, not price. What have they delivered? I
Correct.
met someone not too long ago, and it's a friend's mom, elderly lady. And back in 2001, Amazon stock had crashed from like $100 down to like 10. It was like 90% drop.
I
And
remember that
she
part. Yes, I know.
yeah,
Okay, good.
all of her friends told her she needed to get out of there before she lost all of her money. So she sold it at a loss.
Oh
And
yeah.
imagine
Oh.
the regret that she has today for not holding on to that because she was strictly looking at price instead of
Mm-hmm.
looking at what Amazon was doing. They were just early in what they're doing. There was a lot of volatility in the early days, but looking back in the long term, it just makes sense that, oh my
Yes.
God, everybody wishes they would have got in then. And we've got to start looking at this that way. If you're looking at it from a financial standpoint, think about what's going to give you the best outcome long term. Not a month from now where I can make a quick 10% profit on the trade,
Yes.
but what's going to give me the best long term because I know what money is. I've learned what bad money is, and then I learn, okay, which of these projects has a lot of potential and how's it going to be used in the future. So when people
Yes.
get into that mindset, I think we'll see a shift, and I think it's happening some. But every time we have these market cycles, right now we're in the middle of a bear. We've had some good life the first part of this year, but
Yeah.
everybody's still looking at the price action. I remember, man, I was so when I'm out and about and I'm not at crypto events or doing crypto stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I normally wear a Bitcoin hat because people
Oh.
recognize the symbol.
Yeah. Sure.
And
Sure.
2018, I was checking out at this grocery store we have here called Trader Joe's. And the guy
Mm-hmm.
bagging my groceries saw my Bitcoin hat and he says, Bitcoin, is that still a thing? And I'll never
Wow.
forget this because the price of Bitcoin was about $3,500 at the time.
Okay. Okay.
And I said, yeah, man, absolutely, you should look into it. And I gave him a 2 minute spiel about why it's important, what's wrong with our current money. And I just said,
Mm-hmm.
look, I'm not telling you to go all in, but learn more about it, accumulate a little bit. As you learn more, you're going to want to accumulate more. And hopefully,
Yes.
I never seen the guy since. Hopefully, he took my advice. But
Yes.
that's yeah. We
Yeah.
just got to
That's
take those opportunity to educate people.
yeah. Maybe you've done we've made someone completely rich right now, and he probably should send you some gift. But I was just referring to the Amazon story.
Hmm.
I think this was again regarding the Amazon. I think this Bezos mentioned this at one of his interviews that he saw, because obviously it's much easier. Well, that's what he said. He said that we saw that our stock was going down, but inside in the company we saw completely different picture. Essentially, we were growing, things were getting better, and things of that
Hmm.
sort. So obviously, from the insider perspective, it's easier to say, right? But it really proves the point that the price, price action, it's just, some people say, price action is a distraction. So so because
Yeah.
it really just kind of gives you the, you kind of like look at the chart, but under the hood there's a real business. And in case of Amazon, yeah, but with Bitcoin again, so that's what he mentioned. And in case of Bitcoin, personally, I would be looking at potentially right now, like on the fundamentals, and who is actually looking at buying Bitcoins and probably accumulating. Like, I mean, a lot of family offices are coming in, storing this, the
Yeah.
assets, and many more to come. So, just the principles of having 21 millions of Bitcoins, and all of those things, if you sit down and do proper calculations, then they should really form the foundations of your thinking, not really like, you know, head and shoulders, or different patterns that
Yeah.
you will be watching on the 5 minutes chart, so so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that's really the key in my opinion. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw an article actually today. I saved it. I normally save articles I see throughout the day, so I have time to sit down. I can read them. But it was talking about long-term Bitcoin holding hit about 68% of the supply being like long-term hold right now. Now we all know a
Oh, good.
small percentage of that, or maybe a decent percentage of that, is stuff that's probably lost forever. They're not really holding it, but the number is growing where more and more people are holding. Back to what you said about Warren Buffett and Munger, even. Yeah, they don't understand crypto, so I wouldn't take crypto advice from them. But they've
Yeah.
been amazing investors, and they missed out on some things. But the stuff they believed in, they learned about it, they bought, and they teach you to buy good assets and hold them for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's really where that's my Bitcoin strategy. Not advice for anybody else to do it until you learn more, but that's my Bitcoin strategy.
I
Buy a good
agree with you.
asset,
Not
hold it
that's
for a
not
long
advice
term.
either, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm with you on this one. I mean, but I mean, I will just to elaborate on Buffett, since we're on this topic. But generally, it's not like, for all the people that think, Buffett also hates gold as well. So he says it's not his, let's say, way of investing. Essentially, when he invests in businesses that produce, let's say, outputs and so on. That's generally his way of investing. When he looks at the gold, and he says, well, with the gold, it's essentially you have to sell someone, the gold for the higher price than you actually bought. And that's the same thing, the same way he looks at the Bitcoin. So it again, I agree with you. There are many things that, from the mindset perspective, that it's amazing about them and they delivered. But again, the technology part, I think it's, I would say, blocking them a little bit. And yeah, I think in this case, probably you should, you know, do combined thinking with their thinking and yours after your own research. So yeah, so
yeah.
I'm with you on this part, so completely. So yeah, so we good.
Best
So
investments in your education, right?
yeah, but exactly,
Yeah.
but again, but Buffett also says this. I mean, we're speaking a lot about him, but he says the best investment. If people ask what is the best investment right now, he says it's always in you. You are the best assets that you can ever invest in, because it has
Hmm.
the higher, yield and ROI. So that's true. I think that's true. I agree with that too. I mean, you are with yourself for the whole life. so
Yeah.
so and that's really the that's always the good investment. So yeah.
Absolutely. So before we get to wrapping up, Bartos, I'd like to ask
Oh.
this question to people. If you're open to sharing, what's
Hmm?
the biggest mistake that you made in this space that people can learn from that you're willing to share?
Oh, where do we begin? Where
I
do
know
we
we've got.
begin? Yeah, I think, again, I don't think this will be any, I would say, um, any surprising. I mean, I can maybe share a few. I mean, I think, um, again, I think it's super difficult to control your emotions. This is just insanely difficult. So I would say that, and you would say that you're immune to emotional actions, but honestly, you're not. So my suggestion is that when you are making the big decision, so what I'm trying to get to, the biggest, the biggest mistakes where I made is that I made some big emotional decisions very fast. So, for example, with I can give you just as a just to give you an example, like with uh, uh, emotionally buying Bitcoin at the highest prices because I thought there is no limit, and I thought it was super emotional. There was a denial, and there were many. Again, we're going back to those guys from Charlie Munger. But when you have a lot of biases overlapping, it's sort of like the Lollapalooza effect, where you cannot essentially control it. So yeah, so a lot of emotional decisions that were, let's say, with the big importance. So my suggestion is, again, that if there is something big, maybe try to speak with some of the people, slow it down, analyze it more, and don't do it very fast. It's super difficult to do it in practice, but
Yeah.
but but try. So that's probably one of the things, when it comes to the crypto and the space that we are doing. Um, yeah, and sometimes I think, I don't know from your side, but I think, um, like entrepreneurs like us, generally they always look, I think, on the bright side of things, that sometimes we might not be very objective because we always think we can solve it, we can improve it, this is gonna be okay, we know how to make things happen. So again, maybe try to also have people that have slightly different view than yourself. So like, I'm personally, like, my personality is, let's say, I would say very creative part. I'm more, let's say, less structured person. So have the people that are more, let's say, structured in that scenario, and people that are more logical in many aspects. And often they would say maybe one thing or two, and it would change your view, which could potentially save you from some bad decisions. Um, so, yeah, those would be my advices. As you probably know, the best advices are learned when you make the mistake, and it's on the big scale, then you learn the most. So,
Yeah.
so that's really the thing I would say. Again, it's difficult in practice, but at least try, and yeah, and just again, never stop learning. I think this is also important. So that would be my advices.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely agree with what you said there. I mean, I kind of alluded to one of mine, but it's tied to the emotional piece, right? 2017 was a big ICO craze, and I
Hmm.
was throwing ETH at every token that was launching an ICO, and really looking back, it's like, man, you know where I'd be if I just have that Ethereum instead of spending it on
Yeah.
some of those ICOs that I was listening to everybody and listening to the hype instead of really looking at what are they
It's hard
truly
to.
doing. And just like you look at anything else, what are they doing and how is it different than what's out there? Because you'll see a lot of these projects will throw around buzzwords that don't really mean much.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to create our own wallet, we're going to create our own exchange or whatever. But
Yeah.
what's going to be the differentiator? You tell me you're going to build something that's going to bring in a lot more users because it's going to be super easy. That's more interesting than we're just going to
Hmm.
launch it on this chain or that chain. So
Yeah, I would say,
absolutely.
yeah, I would say that one thing that is quite important here to say is that, um, and I built a lot of things in my life, as I mentioned. So for the last 15 years, and I think, again, many people can sort of confirm that. Um, and I think there's one also video with Steve Jobs discussing this, but it's the idea. It's just only 1%, like white paper or anything to that sort. However, you make that amazing with the ideas, it's only 1% of everything. Like, then you will get into the real building, and there will be many things that you can't do, the problems, issues from many different perspectives, from like financial people. It will have some, it will take too much risk, something will be like some black swan event. There'll be so many things, like from acquisition and million things, then doing it just 99%. Therefore, I'm referring back to this um, delivery uh, result in the past as an indicator of a good project, because everybody can make the amazing presentation, but as you mentioned, 99% of the projects, that's where it ends. So yeah, so again, don't. So maybe this is a good lesson, and this is something,
Yeah.
don't get too to, let's say, don't be too charmed by amazing presentations and the fancy ideas. I would say be more pragmatic in this scenario and really see what people can actually deliver that gives the value. So I think this is also
Yeah.
what you would mention with the many projects that you have invested, right? In the plus, you were excited about this. Probably you heard a lot of different people saying they were hyped. There is no tomorrow. Crypto is the next big thing. So there were a lot of emotion. I've gone through this. I can tell you.
Yeah.
I can tell you a funny story. Actually, I had one of my friend, and we were like going. We went for like holidays, and he was awaiting the rebranding, like, and he was like putting longs because of the rebranding was due to be launched with one project, and he was expecting that, oh wow, they're gonna rebrand it and it's gonna be like 50% up or things of that sort. So this looks very like nowadays when we talk about it, it obviously sounds ridiculous, but yeah, it's been crazy. So
Yeah.
now I think it's more pragmatic, and I think it's more stable in terms of the building. Massive progress been done across many different fronts. So yeah, keep building. I think this is always the good advice, I would say. So yeah.
Cool. Cool. All right, Bartos, as we wrap up, tell everybody where they can learn more about MyCointainer, follow MyCointainer, and definitely follow you as well.
Sure, yeah. So we are across all of the channels, YouTube, Twitter. Just search mycontainer.com. Visit our website. In the footer, you will have, when you go on the website, you will have links to all of our platforms. Yeah, so give us the feedback, what we are doing wrong, what we can improve. This is always a good thing for learning and iterating. Yeah, we always learning more from things that we haven't done properly. So we'd love to welcome the feedback. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, Wayne, for
Yeah.
having me. I enjoyed the conversation. So and I hope we gave some insight to your audience regarding maybe a thing or two about the current state of projects, and maybe a glimpse of a bit of education of what can be improved.
Absolutely. So definitely everybody listen and check out mycointainer.com. Give it a go. Give them some feedback. Reach out to them on social channels. Let them know the good and any other suggestions as well. So thanks again, Bartos, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thanks everybody for listening in, and have a great day, everyone. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you, Wayne. It's been a pleasure. Take care.